All right, so we're back in the shop today, but we're working on something a little different. We're taking a little break from the Dodge and we're moving on to a customer of mine's BMW E36 M3. It's a 95. This is my buddy Vaughn's. He sent this car to me about 6 months ago. It's been here for quite a while. It originally came here for a head gasket, and we've done way more than a head gasket. So for starters, it's a little dirty right now. Repainted his engine bay. It's pretty dusty right now. Put it on some ISC coilovers, rebuilt the whole subframe, painted the subframe, new steering rack, new bushings, new lower control arms. Anything you could replace, we did in the front. Did the same thing in the rear, pulled the subframe, reinforced it, put all new bushings in it, went to polyurethane, and really we are now moving into the motor and transmission stuff, so we can put the motor back in this thing and hopefully get it out of here within the next month. So this is the engine that came out of this car. It's a BMW S50. It's an inline six, 3 liter. Obviously there's something a little different on this side of the motor. These are S54 off of an E36 M3 ITBs. So we converted over from a single throttle body to ITBs, which stands for individual throttle body. This kit made by Rapid Racing Development, it's a direct bolt-on kit to adapt these ITBs onto the motor. Shout out to them, it worked out real good. The kit is basically this adapter plate right here. It's really good quality stuff. He makes all the throttle linkage stuff. And yeah, it's all around, it's a really good fitting kit. And there's not many companies out there, especially in the US, making something like this. We also have a set of equal length headers on it now. We've gone through the motor, checked tolerances, got the head surfaced, put a new head gasket in it, did ARP studs, repainted everything, cleaned everything up, started to put it all back together. And now we're really getting into the harness part. And this car is going to be on a Link standalone. And the wiring harness used to mount all up underneath the intake. Well, now that we have ITBs, we don't want a bunch of wiring just hanging out over here and on top of the motor. So today we're going to be going into sectioning out the harness, cutting some stuff out that we don't need, adding length in where we do, and hopefully we get through most of that today, and then we'll probably go into a few other things on this car as well. So let's get into it. All right, so on this valve cover from the factory, these things come with like a primer gray paint on them. They always chip, they always flake, and they just kind of look like crap. We want to show off this motor and make it kind of really a nice heart to this engine bay. So we went ahead, sandblasted it, gave it a chemical bath, got it all cleaned up inside and out, gave it a black wrinkle coat, which I like that texture. It's like what Ferrari and a lot of other high-end brands do to their valve covers. In the front half of this valve cover, I originally polished it out and it kept getting all oxidized and I couldn't figure out why. Well, it turns out these valve covers aren't aluminum, they're actually magnesium. So we ended up just doing like a brush finish on the front half, left the UB logo all polished out. We added in a radium crankcase ventilation port. It's a banjo bolt style. Had to drill through the valve cover. It's kind of sketchy being magnesium. You can kind of just shatter these things if you're not careful. Had to plug up the stock one because it gets in the way of the fuel rail now. Other than that, it's pretty much the main thing left now is to fix this harness up to fit this motor better now that we have ITBs. So today we're gonna chop some stuff up, solder some stuff back together, and hopefully have most of the harness on this motor by the end of the day. So this is the coil on plug wiring harness for this motor. It's normally one part with the rest of the engine harness, but since we're moving the injector connector rail to underneath the ITBs, we have to add some length. So I already went ahead the other night and started adding length to all the activation wires. Now I got to do ground, power, and the secondary ground. So we're gonna start on doing all this. I got some more wire here. We're gonna solder it all on and then we'll throw it on the motor, get our lengths down exactly, clip off the excess, and then we'll end up hooking that up to the harness, get it all wrapped, and we'll go from there. Just finished up doing the coil on plug harness. It's all rerouted, tucked tighter on the motor. It's now gonna continue on with the fuel rail, wrap it down around the ITBs underneath where the rest of the harness is. So that's one thing that we already wrapped up, and we're gonna be moving into lengthening these injector wires because they're too short. And I bought some extenders, but I don't like having another inline plug. There's no reason. So we are going to cut the heads off these, extend them, make them run all the way out the bottom. So it'll kind of look like this in the end. It'll just be like tucked wires. You won't see wires running all over the place. Plus we're gonna put the engine cover back on. Moving on to the engine cover, which is right here. It'll fit. Still, there's not really anything in its way except for this crankcase breather for the catch can. So thankfully, Radium knew what they were doing when they designed this, and I can pop this retaining clip off, pull that off, drill a hole, put the cover on. That might be one way I do it. If not, I'm gonna throw kind of a notch in here so that you can take the cover off with this on. So we're gonna poke a hole in it first, try to get this fitted up, and then we'll probably jump back into doing some more wiring. But I just wanna see how this fits with the wiring harness. So, into that. A little wilder. right, so we finished up the coil pack wiring, which I'll show you guys real quick. It's all cleaned up. And now really we just gotta tie these open-end flying leads back into the harness once we figure out the length. We also did something pretty cool with this valve cover. Something simple just to make things a little easier when it comes to putting your cover back on, taking it off. Got my crankcase ventilation done and put some fuel fittings on. Happy with how everything came out. So now we're just gonna kind of process where we're at and jump into it next week.